I didn't think my spouse liked me because I wasn't pretty, but I later discovered he was gay and cheating on me with his best buddy. I exposed him publicly. For 4 years, I've been married to Stephen, 35. We live with his family and have a bad marriage. Stephen appeared great when we met. Charming, successful, and from a respectable family. Everything seemed fantastic throughout our year-long dating before we married. But when we married, things changed. On our wedding night, Stephen scarcely touched me. I understood he was exhausted from the festivities. However, intimacy became infrequent as days turned into weeks and weeks into months. He'd push me away or make excuses when I initiated. Stephen revealed a secret 6 months into our marriage. He said my body wasn't his and he didn't like me. Devastated. When I asked him why he married me, he said he hoped he could learn to like me. This revelation shattered my self-esteem. I obsessed about dieting and explored plastic surgery to make him want me. Nothing changed. Stephen grew distant as our intimacy concerns worsened. Being with his family made things worse. They're conventional and value children. They made nasty comments about my fertility as our marriage went on without a child. The early signs were faint. Stephen's mother would inquire when we were having children, or his aunt would suggest a fertility herb. The comments became more blunt and cruel over time. Stephen's grandma asked me if I was sick at one family dinner. She noted a healthy young couple without children after 2 years was abnormal. I left the table crying, ashamed. Steve never defended me in these occasions. He sat silently while his family yelled at me. When I questioned him later, he shrugged, stating that family continuity was their main concern. Stephen has been invited to a fertility clinic several times. I thought we could be checked out together to see if either side had problems. He routinely ignores my pleas, saying doctors shouldn't interfere in our personal lives. His failure to be checked has simply reinforced his family's perception that I'm the issue. My mental health is suffering from their treatment of me as defective. I feel alone in this place with no one to turn to. Stephen spent more time with his 32-year-old best friend Robbie as our marriage declined. I was first relieved Stephen had someone to confide in, hoping it would help him resolve his marriage concerns. But then I saw odd trends. Stephen regularly canceled our arrangements to hang out with Robbie. He'd party with him all night and return stinking of alcohol and smokes. He'd get defensive and accuse me of not trusting him when I asked where he was. Stephen started sleeping at Robbie's instead of ours. He'd pretend he was too inebriated to drive home or that they'd lost time playing video games. He once disappeared for 3 days. Once home, he acted like nothing was wrong and got upset when I conveyed my concern and frustration. This bond seemed to transcend boundaries. After planning shopping trips, they spent hours choosing clothes and accessories. Stephen said he disliked shopping with me. He immediately wanted to spend weekends in the mall with Robbie. The two started arranging holidays together. Stephen would dismiss it as a guy's outing or say 3 would be a crowd when I begged to join. I felt more pushed out of my marriage. The physical affection between Stephen and Robbie also worried me. They hugged too long and appeared excessively touchy. I'd noticed them sitting too close on the couch or playing wrestling that appeared quite personal once I entered our kitchen and saw them. Robbie held Stephen's waist and they split when they spotted me. Stephen dismissed it as paranoia, but the image lingered with me. At another family BBQ, Robbie fed Stephen his burger. It was very intimate. And their gaze made me feel like I was intruding on a romantic moment. Despite these warnings, I tried to tell myself I was overreacting. Stephen was my husband. He picked my marriage. My doubts persisted, and I couldn't shake the sensation that their relationship was more than it seemed. I hoped our 4th wedding anniversary would be a chance to reconnect and improve our marriage. I made a nice supper at home, bought new lingerie, and wrote Stephen a beautiful letter expressing my love and willingness to work things out. On our anniversary, Stephen didn't mention it. He went to work silently and didn't return. He ignored my calls and texts. Hours passed, and I became more enraged. Finally, after midnight I was done. I knew his likely whereabouts. I drove to Robbie's place to confront my husband and bring him home. I had no idea that night would change everything. First update. I was shocked to find Robbie's front door slightly ajar when I arrived. I heard quiet music inside as I approached. I shouted but got no response. I felt apprehensive when I opened the door and entered. The living room was messy. Half-eaten plates and empty beer bottles littered the floor. I saw Stephen's favorite shirt thrown over a chair among the clothes. I called for Stephen and Robbie around the house. As I neared the bedroom, I heard laughter and muffled voices. My pulse raced as I opened the door. Nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. Stephen and Robbie were naked and intertwined in bed. They were too absorbed in one another to see me. When they spotted me, their shock and shame said it all. Fully numb, I stood there. It felt like time paused. My concerns and worries became this dreadful reality. After 4 years together, my spouse cheated on me with his best friend. Stephen leapt out of bed, hurriedly covering himself. He stammered excuses, stating they were inebriated and things had gotten out of hand. His lies were obvious in his eyes. Robbie sat pale and silent. He seemed more upset about being caught than remorseful. At that time, I loathed him more than anyone else. After the shock, rage set in. To express even a portion of my pain, I wanted to scream and throw things. I lost my voice. I stood there trembling with wrath and pain. Stephen approached, reaching out to touch. I recoiled and he stopped. Then he and Robbie begged me not to tell. They warned it would damage their life, professions, and family and friend relationships. The arrogance shocked me. After destroying my world, they just cared about themselves. They treated me like a nuisance, not a person. I decided then. I turned and left the room silently. Stephen called after me, but I kept going. I drove to my buddy Sarah's house. Since college, Sarah was my best friend and the one person I could trust. When I arrived at her door at night, crying and hardly lucid, she didn't ask questions. She hugged and welcomed me in. The following week at Sarah's, I rarely ate or slept. Stephen, his family, and Robbie left me a lot of messages and missed calls. Unfortunately, I couldn't answer to any. I thought a lot that week. I relived my marriage, noticing all the indications I'd overlooked. I remembered how Stephen made me feel small, ugly, and unloved. I realized I'd lost myself trying to be his wife. I also wondered why Stephen married me. Why marry if he was gay or attracted to men? Was it all a cover? Was I just a beard for him? I became furious as I contemplated it. Not only had Stephen cheated on me, he stole years from me. He made me think I wasn't attractive or fertile when he was lying. After the shock, I started planning. I couldn't ignore this. After what they'd done to me, Stephen and Robbie shouldn't keep their secret. I earned a second chance at life and self-esteem. Sarah helped me gather proof. We searched my phone and social media for suspicious Stephen or Robbie texts. Many were devastating in retrospect. We tracked their movements too. Sarah drove past Robbie's house or Stephen's job, shooting photos when they were together. Under different conditions, it may have been nice to feel like private investigators. I replied to Stephen's mails after a week. I told him I needed time to consider and will contact him when ready. He stopped calling and texting after this calmed him. He had no idea I was waiting to build the power and facts to blow his neatly crafted resistance open. Second update: 6 months have passed since that terrible night at Robbie's house, and my life has changed. Let me inform you on what's happened since then. After a week at Sarah's, I executed my strategy. Sarah and I had gathered a lot of Stephen and Robbie's affair evidence. Photos of them in compromising positions, flirty text messages, and a bar parking lot kiss clip were available. I put all this evidence in one folder. On Sunday afternoon, when Stephen's family would be meeting for lunch, I sent everything to the family group chat. I briefly explained what I found and that I would divorce. Response was quick and chaotic. My phone burst with calls and messages. Stephen's family, who had always disdained me, apologized and offered assistance. Once they knew Stephen was guilty, they turned on him so rapidly it was almost funny. Naturally, Stephen was outraged. He called me every name, accused me of wrecking his life, and threatened to sue me for defamation. I had truth on my side. I wouldn't retreat. I tagged mutual friends and co-workers in social media posts with the evidence. Though petty, taking control of the story felt empowering after years of being made to feel small and useless. Significant fallout. Stephen was fired after his conservative bosses discovered the affair. Many friends left him. While not fully excluding him, his family was ashamed and disappointed. Not much better for Robbie. He relocated to a new city to start over, last I heard. I sought divorce immediately. It was simple given the circumstances. Stephen didn't argue, likely wanting to finish fast and discreetly. My divorce was official 3 months ago, and I've never felt freer. My shoulders feel lighter. No more pretending to be someone else or trying to please people who never liked me. Moved out of the city. I got a new job and started over. My self-esteem, which was low for so long, is slowly rising. Therapy has been really helpful in healing my marriage and affair pain. Reconnecting with my ex-boyfriend Mark was unexpected yet wonderful. Dating in college, we split up after graduation. He supported and befriended me, following my divorce. At first I hesitated. My last desire was to start another relationship. Mark is really patient and understanding. At first we merely chatted about our lives. My undergraduate sentiments for him returned slowly. We've had a great month dating. Mark is respectful and loving. He makes me feel desirable and respected, unlike Stephen. Though early, I'm cautiously enthusiastic about this. I'm glad I revealed Stephen and Robbie's affair. I was scolded for not handling things quietly. After years of being lied to and made to feel inadequate, I wanted to reclaim my story. I now realize I wasn't my marriage's problem. I wasn't ugly or unlovable. Stephen's dishonesty with himself and me was the issue. I wouldn't wish my sorrow on anyone, but I'm happy for the resilience and self-awareness I learned. This is for anyone wondering if they're insane for suspecting their partner of cheating. Rely on instinct. You deserve sincerity, respect, and love. Don't let others devalue you. I'm looking forward to this new chapter. First time in years, I'm optimistic. I'm learning who I am outside of being Stephen's wife, and I dig it. I'll be fine whatever happens with Mark. I'm stronger and won't accept anything less than love and respect.